Every war you see on the news is making someone extremely rich. Not countries, not soldiers, investors. While people focus on explosions, destruction, and chaos, something much bigger is happening in the background. Money is moving, and most people never see it, because war doesn't just destroy economies, it reshapes them. When a war starts, the first reaction is fear. Markets panic, people sell. Uncertainty spreads everywhere. But here's the part nobody tells you. Fear is not random. Fear creates direction. And that direction determines where billions of dollars flow next. Because in times of crisis, money doesn't disappear. It relocates. Every global crisis follows the same pattern. Capital leaves uncertainty and rushes towards safety. But safety is not always what people think. Sometimes it's gold, sometimes it's oil, sometimes it's entire industries. And the people who understand this shift early position themselves before the move happens. This is not luck. This is pattern recognition. Let's start with oil, because oil is always the first signal. When conflict threatens supply routes, pipelines, or production, prices react instantly, not later, immediately. And when oil prices rise, energy companies don't just benefit, they explode. Revenue increases, margins expand, stocks surge. While the world is focused on war, energy markets are quietly printing money. Then comes gold. Gold is not about growth. Gold is about fear. When investors lose confidence in stability, they look for something that doesn't depend on governments, policies, or promises. That's where gold comes in. It becomes a psychological safe zone. And as fear increases, demand increases. Not because gold is changing, but because everything else feels unstable. But the biggest winners are rarely talked about. Defense companies, because war doesn't just create destruction, it creates demand. Governments increase military budgets. Emergency contracts get approved. Production accelerates. Weapons, systems, technology, everything scales fast. And these companies operate on one thing: long-term contracts backed by governments, which means predictable, massive cash flow. In other words, war becomes business. Here's what most people completely miss. War is chaos for the public, but for experienced investors, it creates clarity. Because when emotions take over the market, patterns become easier to spot. Panic selling, overreaction, mispricing. And that's where smart money steps in, not during comfort, during fear. And this is where it gets dangerous, because the biggest opportunities don't appear when things feel safe. They appear when things feel uncertain, and most people are psychologically not built to act in those moments, which is exactly why the same players keep winning. If you zoom out, you start to see it clearly. Every major crisis creates the same capital movement, out of fear, into structure, into opportunity. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it, because it repeats again and again and again. So the real question is not who wins the war. The real question is who understands where the money is going, because that's where the real power is. And once you start following the money, you stop reacting to the world, and you start seeing it for what it really is, a system that moves wealth from those who panic to those who are prepared.